Let's listen in to the U.S. President Joe Biden. He's speaking in Hanoi in Vietnam.
South, and does that change your commitment to Ukraine?
It's not a wedge issue with the global South. It's a wedge issue with Russia, which is present, and with China, which is present, has representation. And and by the way, I am my team, my staff still meets with President Xi's people and his cabinet. In effect, I met with his number 2 person here in India today. So it's not like there's a crisis if I don't personally speak to him. It'd be better if I did. But I think, look, this is not a criticism. It's an observation. He has his hands full right now. He has overwhelming unemployment with his youth. One of the major economic tenets of his plan isn't working at all right now. I'm not happy for that, but it's not working. So he's trying to figure out, I suspect, I don't know, just like I would, trying to figure out what to do about the particular crisis they're having now. But I don't think it's a crisis relating to conflict between China and the United States. As a matter of fact, I think it's less likely to cause that kind of conflict. Anyway, I just think that there are other things on leaders' minds and respond to what's needed at the time. And look, nobody likes having celebrated international meetings if you don't know what you want at the meeting. If you don't have a game plan. He may have a game plan. He just hasn't shared it with me. But I tell you what, I don't know about you, but I'm going to go to bed.
Now, for more perspective on the U.S. President's statements, in the studio with me today is Jessica Stone from Voice of America. Jessica, now we've been talking about the U.S.-China dynamic, I think, since the start of the pandemic. You were in Washington, D.C., and we, of course, here in New Delhi.
Yes.
And now this press conference happening in Hanoi in Vietnam. Even before Biden headed to Vietnam, experts had said that this visit is intended to be a signal to China. How do you read Biden's comments?
I think it's very much the case that this is a signal to China, Priyanka, and thank you so much for having me. It's nice to be on set with you as well. It's very much a sign of what's going on with U.S. and China, that he's in the backyard of China, right? And upgrading the ties between the U.S. and Vietnam is also going to give Vietnam more confidence in the context of what's going on in the South China Sea. It's also going to bring more business to Vietnam. This is a prime location for what we call friendshoring, the movement within the United States to move from reliance on Chinese manufacturing locations to Vietnamese manufacturing locations. Is obviously quite close to the Chinese market. It's close to the shipping lanes of the South China Sea. I would add that covering the supply chain issue before, during, and after the pandemic, though, many of the prospective partners in Vietnam are Chinese owned, so it's a bit difficult to work in some times with the folks on the ground in Vietnam in terms of getting it up to speed with respect to manufacturing. But nonetheless, that's the movement of, and we've seen a great amount of increase in trade between the U.S. and Vietnam as a result of that, just in the last year, in fact.
Absolutely. Just for the sake of our viewers, I want to talk about Biden's statement. I'm sincere about getting the relationship right. He's talking about the U.S. ties with China, but China is trying to change the rules of the game. I don't want to contain China. Jessica, from where I'm sitting, is this a change from script when it comes to the U.S. narrative on China?
No, it's spot on. It's spot
Really?
on. They've been saying this for years. I think even in the Obama administration they were saying this. Look, the Chinese often put this relationship in the context of the Cold War. You heard the president talk about the Cold War mentality. That is the drumbeat coming out of Beijing, accusation about how the U.S. is approaching this relationship. And yet it is not about containing China, the White House would argue. It's about getting China to play by the rules of the road. It is a member of the United Nations. It is a member of the World Trade Organization, the G20. These are all bodies with whom it has responsibility to play by the rules of the road. And the White House consistently argues that it's not. And the fact that it's still labeled a developing economy is really something that people in Washington talk a lot about. It really cheeses them that China is still considering itself a developing economy when it's the second largest economy in the world. So these are the kinds of comments we've gotten out of the White House consistently, I would say.
Jessica, when it came to this Vietnam trip, we've spoken a lot about the agenda, semiconductors, rare earth metals, minerals. These are the terms that have been used. How will China respond to these comments, if at all?
Well, rare earth minerals has been, I mean, I think there's been a race to find those for years now. And in fact, I was covering that issue maybe 15 years ago. Even then, we knew that these were very fundamental to all of the technology of the future, specifically renewable energy, right? And all of these gadgets that we use every day. So I have noticed that in the last year, almost every bilateral interaction that the U.S. government has some element of rare earth minerals. We saw deals coming out of the state visit, Priyanka, with respect to making India part of this rare earth mineral, this critical minerals consortium that's happening globally. So everybody wants them. We know that China has most of them organically, and the U.S. has only one single mine in the United States that can mine these rare earth minerals. So it's really fundamental. Whoever controls these minerals really controls the future.
Right, Jessica, thank you so much for all that analysis, and thanks for joining us in the WION studio.
You bet.
WION World is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news updates on the move.